This message has been brought to you by the California Institute.
Hello, it is I, Professor Heartlin of the California Institute, here with my assistant, Professor Merlan, also from the California Institute, yes, here to tell you all about the Ohlone people of Central California.
The Ohlone people are the regional natives of the San Francisco and Monterey Bays. They populate the Santa Cruz Mountains, the San Francisco and Monterey shorelines, and the San Jose and Salinas valleys. All these different people and all these vast different lands organize themselves into 50 different fixed villages that occasionally move around to gather seasonal foods.
These tribes would interact via trade, marriages, cultural ceremonies, and combat if tensions ever arose. But each village was part of a greater tribe, one with their own fixed territory.
If you were to enter one of these villages, you would find a bustling community of 50 to 500 people, averaging around 200. People will be wearing beaded necklaces and bone nose piercing. Women typically would wear deerskin aprons or skirts made out of tulle or shredded bark. Men typically wouldn't wear much, except for the cooler months, where both men and women would wear capes made out of fur or feathers.
Throughout the village, you would find women with tattoos on their chins, people weaving traditional baskets, and ceremonial dancing. And for village assemblies, you'd go to the round traditional assembly house, known as the Open Tarok.
Down the valleys and along the shores, you would find dome-shaped houses, 6 to 20 feet in diameter, made out of local resources. And in the Redwood Mountains, you'd find cone-shaped houses, made of redwood bark and a wood structure. For navigating the bays and the rivers, the Ohlone would make boats made out of tulle with double-bladed oars. The Ohlone were hunter-gatherers and harvesters who adopted an early form of agriculture. They ate a lot of nuts and acorns, which included acorn dough, which required a multi-month long labor-inducive process called leaching to prepare. They also ate a lot of grass seed, berries, and hunted animal and fish for food.
In the San Francisco Bay, they ate mussels and abalone. They also ate birds as well, including waterfowl, ducks, and geese, which they dried and stuffed to use as decoys for more hunting. But this abundance of food and resources wasn't just sitting and waiting for them. Instead, it took active management and maintenance from the Ohlone and other peoples of California, including annual land burning to produce better yields for the planted seeds.
The Ohlone did have real spiritual beliefs, even before the arrival of Catholic missionaries. Though it is important to remember that spirituality and religiosity did vary from region to region, tribe to tribe, village to village, in practice and belief. But generally, they all followed the Kuksu religion, which was popular amongst many in Central California.
Kuksu included dancing ceremonies and traditional costumes, annual mourning routines, coming-of-age rituals, and interventions with the spirit world.
There were also shamans who healed people with singing, ceremonies, and traditional dancing. They are also believed to have powers to see and influence the future.
The Ohlone built prayer houses, also known as a sweat lodge or tupantak, where people went to purify, cleanse, and empower themselves before hunting, dancing, or another task.
They built them around stream bends because the Ohlone believed water had healing properties. It was also positive that they were exposed to Kuksu from other natives during the mission period.
The Ohlone would create shell mound cemeteries to bury and mourn their dead. But these shell mounds actually had additional purposes. Along the coast, these shell mounds provided a protection from the high tide and higher ground to navigate the bays.
It was estimated that upwards of 500 shell mounds were made before the date of Spanish invasion. A few of those remain in Glen Cove, West Berkeley, Santa Cruz, San Jose, Fremont, and even one on top of Mount Umina.
Everything was going great for the Ohlone until the Spanish arrived in 1770 with a mission to erase the cultures of California, to abduct the natives into Spanish feudal society, to use them as their own slave workforce. The reason behind Spain's decision to conquer California at that time was a mix of religious, economical, and political factors. If you're curious, check out California Long Story Short on YouTube. Part 2 coming soon. But they had their eyes set on California for a long time due to its strategic location in an emerging and wealthy Asian Pacific trade network.
Initially, the natives actually agreed to help the Spanish build the missions, especially since the Spanish couldn't force them at gunpoint, since there were only a handful of Spaniards and thousands of natives. So the iconic missions of California are actually made completely by the natives. And many natives even became soldiers for the missions, traveling out to adopt more of the Ohlone into the mission system. But this initial consensual labor would quickly become forced labor and blatant slavery.
Leading the mission system of California, which initially spanned from already conquered Baja California to the Bay Area of San Francisco, was Padre Junipero Serra. The Ohlone were stuffed into cramped dormitories where foreign disease would run like wildfire, and men and women were forbidden to speaking with each other unless already married. Natives in the mission system were forced to abide by a tight bell schedule, participate in unending forced labor, and leave behind their beliefs, way of life, and identities.
But this oppressive system did not go unopposed. The Ohlone and other groups all protested and fought against the mission system in small and big ways. One individual named Ponponio would commit his life to fighting against the missions. Ponponio Lupugayan was born in the San Francisco mission as a coastal Miwok from the Guanlan tribe. At a fairly young age, he escaped the mission and began raiding ranches and other missions all around the San Francisco Bay Area. It is said that he had a so-called headquarters named Ponponio's Cave near present-day Devil's Canyon Falls. He would continue to raid from missions near and far from his home area until he was captured and shot near San Rafael around the age of 25. Eventually and gradually, the Mexican government slowly dismantled the mission system through a process of secularization. Private rancheros struggled to compete with the institution of the missions, so Mexico provided land grants to private dons, who slowly outpowered the missions in wealth and regional influence. In 1834, the mission system was dismantled entirely. Many of the Ohlone would become ranch hands on what was previously their land, then mission lands, and then privately owned. In the current events for present-day Ohlone descendants, large strides have been made to reclaim sacred lands and burial grounds from areas covered by modern infrastructure. A recent story in Oakland shares how after years of protests, legal battles, and fundraising, a conservation was freely offered to the city by an Ohlone land trust. There are many land trusts like these all over California, striving to reclaim and preserve some of the most sacred and historical lands in the country.